And Alex, I think that there's two ways to answer that question that you asked. Um, when you asked why Bitcoin? Why does Bitcoin solve what we think is the problem? And right, and Ben, just talked a lot about the money side of things. And I think like a really short, easy way to say that is Bitcoin is just better money, right? That's why we believe Bitcoin will win in the game of liquidity, at least in terms of it's a black hole that's going to suck up all capital from everything else. But the answer to the question why Bitcoin is a complex one. I mean, the history is complex. Right before we started this interview, I was in the process of writing a newsletter on one of the financial panics in the mid 1800s, and I ended up having to turn to Rothbard's history of banking and money in the United States to get a more detailed background on that. And it's helping me flesh out my understanding of the answer to that question, why Bitcoin? And the answer is, and this is something Satoshi understood, is that it's self-clearing, right? Because if you look at all of the history of banking in the United States, at least, which is what I'm most familiar with, you'll see that all of the instances where banking became more centralized and we became prone to these inflationary experiments that really most of the time were in effect the ability for governments to prop up their ability to spend more, right, and expand their credit through the banking system, and then banks would enrich themselves through the rehypothecation of that debt and expand the money supply, for their own benefit. It was this process of clearing, redemption of specie, redemption of paper for gold. This process that led to the continual centralization of banking. As I said, with a self-clearing asset like Bitcoin, right, you don't have those same problems. And one of the things that Ben and I say all the time is that 1971, the inflection point in the data and the economic mess that we've had unfold over the following 50 years is an opportunity to point to, WTF happened in 1971 and say, this is what happens when your money fails, right? Gold failed as money in 1971. We say that all the time, and people hate that. But the honest truth is, if money is supposed to be our measuring stick of value in a society, and that measuring stick can be co-opted and disrupted through processes of centralization necessary for gold to be used as money in an increasingly nationalized and increasingly globalized economy, then that is a failure of money. And so Bitcoin self-clearing, I think, is probably the biggest reason. The elimination of trusted third parties is what it's really about. That's what Bitcoin does. That's why Bitcoin